Have you ever felt like you were facing insurmountable challenges? Have you imagined that, even in adversity, you could be led to accomplish extraordinary feats? In today's video, we will dive into the life of Daniel, a man who, taken from his homeland and thrown into a world of exile, not only survived but thrived, becoming a counselor to kings and a symbol of unwavering faith. Have you ever wondered what it's like to be called to a divine mission? My name is Daniel, and this is my story. From a young age, I felt a burden in my heart, a calling that seemed to whisper in the quiet moments and shout in times of turmoil. I grew up in Jerusalem, a city full of history and faith, where the stories of ancient prophets echoed through the streets and synagogues. My family was of nobility, perhaps even of royal lineage, and from an early age, I learned about the laws and commandments of our God. Faith was not just a concept but a living reality, pulsating in every aspect of daily life. However, this tranquility was shattered when Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, besieged Jerusalem. The sky was tinged with red and orange as the enemy armies advanced, and the sound of horse hooves and the clamor of Babylonian warriors filled the air. Among the captured was I, Daniel, dragged from my homeland into an uncertain future. The chains that bound my hands weighed as heavily as the uncertainty of my destiny. Even so, within me, something told me that my faith would be my fortress, my anchor amid the chaos. The calling I felt in Jerusalem only intensified, as if God was preparing something grand for me. The journey to Babylon was arduous and full of reflections. With each step, I wondered what my life would be like in that new world. Upon arrival, we were received not as ordinary prisoners but as future servants of the king's court. Along with my companions Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, we were selected for a 3-year program where we would learn the language and literature of the Chaldeans. This training was an honor, but also an immense challenge. How could we remain faithful to God in such a foreign and pagan environment? The attempt to assimilate us into Babylonian culture began with changing our names, an effort to erase our identity and faith. I was renamed Belteshazzar, but within me, I knew that no matter what they called us, our devotion to God would remain unbreakable. This new beginning was full of uncertainties, but my faith was like a light guiding me through the darkness of exile. Each day was a battle to maintain my identity and beliefs intact. The lessons and traditions of Jerusalem were my comfort, my link to a past that seemed increasingly distant. The training we received in Nebuchadnezzar's court was not only intellectual but also spiritual. We were instructed in the wisdom of the Chaldeans, but we held firm to our faith in God. The challenges were constant, from the pressure to adopt pagan customs to daily temptations testing our devotion. The education in the Chaldean language and literature was rigorous, but it provided a unique opportunity to influence the court from within. We knew that, despite appearances, we were on a divine mission. The true test of our faith came when we were offered food from the king's table, which our faith prohibited. Refusing the king's food was unthinkable and could cost us our lives. However, our faith impelled us to request an alternative to eat only vegetables and drink water. It was an act of defiance but also of profound trust in God. The decision seemed simple to many, but for us it was a matter of fidelity to God. This small miracle, which to others might seem insignificant, reaffirmed our faith and determination to follow divine paths, even in foreign lands. When we faced the decision to eat the king's food, the situation became a matter of life or death. The offered food was prohibited by our laws, and by refusing, we risked our lives. Yet, our faith gave us the strength to seek an alternative. We requested permission to eat only vegetables and drink water for 10 days, trusting that God would sustain us. This was a demonstration of our total dependence and trust in God. The chief of the eunuchs initially expressed concerns, fearing for our health and his position before the king. However, he accepted our proposal. After 10 days, our appearance was healthier and more robust than that of the young men who ate the king's food. This small but profound miracle was the first of many demonstrations of God's faithfulness to us. He had sustained and blessed us, reaffirming our faith and determination. This episode was not just about food, but about our unbreakable devotion and certainty that God was with us, even in the most adverse circumstances. Every day in the Babylonian court, we faced new challenges that tested our faith and loyalty to God. The environment was full of temptations and pressures to adopt pagan customs and beliefs. Yet, our faith in God was the anchor that kept us firm. We knew that, despite the difficulties, we were on a greater mission. The attempt to assimilate us culturally could not erase our spiritual identity. Our devotion to God was like a flame burning intensely, illuminating our path and strengthening our resolve. Amid this scenario, the determination to remain faithful to the God of Israel burned stronger than the flames of Babylonian altars. Every decision we made was an act of defiance and faith. Refusing the king's food and maintaining our religious practices were powerful testimonies of our loyalty to God. Even when everything around us seemed to conspire against our faith, we found strength and courage in the certainty that God was with us. Our unwavering commitment to faith not only sustained us but also guided our journey, even in foreign lands. One of the greatest tests of faith and trust in God occurred when King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream that deeply troubled his spirit. He demanded that his wise men not only interpret the dream but also reveal the dream itself, an apparently impossible task. The tension in the court was palpable, as failure to satisfy the king would mean death. When the news that all the wise men would be executed reached me, I felt my faith being tested like never before. With a serenity that only deep faith can provide, I asked the chief of the royal guard, Arioch, to give me time to reveal and interpret the king's dream. Surprisingly, my request was granted, and I gathered my friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah to pray fervently to God. Our plea was clear that the God of heaven would grant us mercy by revealing the mystery of the king's dream. God's answer came in the stillness of the night, a divine revelation that not only unveiled Nebuchadnezzar's dream but also provided its interpretation. In the moment of clarity, I was overwhelmed with gratitude and awe for God's goodness and power. With a heart overflowing with joy, I praised the God of heaven, recognizing his wisdom and power, his ability to reveal deep and hidden mysteries. With this revelation in hand, I approached Nebuchadnezzar's throne, not with arrogance but with the humility of one chosen by God to be his instrument. Revealing to the king not only the content of his dream but also its interpretation, I witnessed the power of God on a grand stage, before the most powerful of men. The dream described a great statue with parts made of different metals, symbolizing future kingdoms and divine sovereignty over human affairs. The stone that destroyed the statue without human aid proclaimed the coming of an eternal kingdom established by God himself, which would never be destroyed. The king's reaction was beyond any expectation. From an accuser and executioner of wise men, Nebuchadnezzar transformed into a man who bowed in recognition of the God of Daniel, praising him as the revealer of mysteries. I, an exile in a foreign land, was exalted to a position of great honor, and my friends were also blessed with prominent positions. Our faithfulness to God and courage to trust him amid a desperate situation led us to be honored and respected. This rise to power was not just an earthly reward but a confirmation that God was with us, guiding our steps and using us for his purposes. Our position in the Babylonian court allowed us to influence the kingdom in ways we could never have imagined, showing that even in foreign lands, God's sovereignty prevailed. However, my friends and my unbreakable faith were again tested when Nebuchadnezzar decreed that everyone in the kingdom must bow and worship a colossal golden statue he had erected. This demand was a direct affront to our faith, for we knew that only the God of Israel was worthy of worship. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah refused to bow before the king's image, an act of disobedience that inflamed Nebuchadnezzar's wrath. He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual to punish those who defied his mandate. Watching closely, my heart was heavy, not with doubt but with the weight of the moment unfolding. My friends were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace, a fate that seemed to seal not only their martyrdom, but also proclaim the defeat of our faith before the eyes of the empire. However, what happened next was a testimony not only for those watching that day but for all future generations. In his arrogance, Nebuchadnezzar saw something that shook the foundations of his faith. He saw 4 men walking unbound and unharmed in the midst of the fire, and the fourth was like a son of the gods. The furnace, prepared to be the instrument of our defeat, became the scene of a divine manifestation of power and protection. When Nebuchadnezzar approached the furnace's opening and called my friends by name, commanding them to come out, what followed was a scene of divine triumph. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah emerged without a single hair on their heads singed, their clothes unharmed, and without the smell of fire on them. The impossible had occurred. God had delivered his servants from the blazing furnace. Nebuchadnezzar's response was immediate and profound, praising the God of Israel, acknowledging his sovereignty, and proclaiming a decree that any word against the God of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah would be punished, for no other God could save in such a way. My friends were promoted in the province of Babylon, but the true triumph was not in their earthly exaltation but in the glorification of the God we serve. The story of the blazing furnace is a tale of faith, courage, and divine sovereignty manifested amid the flames. My friends were not alone. They were in the company of the divine, a presence that ensured their miraculous salvation. This event not only solidified our faith in God, but also served as an unbreakable testimony of his protection and power for all who heard about this miracle. Amid the most intense adversity, God revealed his presence and power, ensuring that even in the flames of persecution, he is with us, a faithful and powerful protector. The calm before the next storm was interrupted when Nebuchadnezzar had another disturbing dream. This time, he saw a majestic tree that reached the heavens, visible to the whole earth, providing shelter and food for many. However, a heavenly voice ordered the tree to be cut down, its leaves and fruits scattered, leaving only the trunk and roots in the ground, bound with iron and bronze. The voice proclaimed that this would happen so that the living might know that the Most High rules over the kingdom of men and gives it to whom he will. Upon hearing the king's account, I felt the weight of the divine meaning contained in those dream images. After seeking the wisdom that only God can provide, I was overwhelmed with a sense of sorrow as I understood the dream's meaning. It was a direct warning to Nebuchadnezzar, a king who, though blessed with power and glory, had allowed arrogance to obscure his recognition of divine sovereignty. With humility and care, I revealed to the king the dream's meaning. The tree that reached the heavens represented Nebuchadnezzar himself, whose kingdom had grown great and strong. However, just as the tree would be cut down, Nebuchadnezzar would be removed from his throne, driven away from men until he acknowledged that the Most High rules over the kingdom of men and gives it to whom he will. The dream's revelation carried both a warning and a divine promise of restoration if the king turned to the true source of his authority and power. Despite the fear the interpretation might arouse, Nebuchadnezzar listened attentively. I advised him to renounce his sins and injustices, hoping that the dream's revealed destiny might be avoided. However, the prophetic words were fulfilled. The king was struck with madness, driving him away from his throne and human society, wandering the fields like an animal until he acknowledged the sovereignty of the Most High. Time passed, and as promised by God, Nebuchadnezzar was restored to his throne with renewed understanding and a transformed heart. He proclaimed to the peoples of his vast empire the sovereignty and greatness of the Most High God, whose acts are true and whose ways are just, and who is able to humble those who walk in pride. My journey with Nebuchadnezzar, from interpreting his dreams to witnessing his fall and restoration, was a constant reminder of God's power and mercy. The story of the Babylonian king is not just about the rise and fall of a man, but about the divine sovereignty that rules over the kingdoms of men. It was a lesson of humility and recognition, engraved not only in the history of the Babylonian Empire, but in the hearts of all who witnessed the mercy and justice of the God of Israel. On a fateful night, the atmosphere in Belshazzar's court was laden with exuberance and disdain. Wine flowed freely, and the sounds of laughter and blasphemy echoed through the golden halls of the palace. I, Daniel, long removed from court affairs since the previous reign, was suddenly called back to the epicenter of Babylonian power to interpret a phenomenon that had paralyzed King Belshazzar's feast. In his arrogance, he had commanded that the sacred vessels taken from the temple in Jerusalem be brought out to drink from during his banquet, openly defying the God of Israel. It was in this scene of blasphemy that a hand appeared, writing mysterious words on the palace wall, leaving the king and his guests terrified. The wisdom of the kingdom's magicians and diviners failed to reveal the meaning of these words, and so they called me to decipher the divine inscription. Feeling the weight of responsibility and the serenity of faith, I approached the wall where the words, Mean Tekel Upharsin were written. With a calm that contrasted with the chaos of that night, I explained to the king and all present that these words announced the end of the Babylonian Empire as we knew it meant that God had numbered the days of Belshazzar's reign and decided its end. Tekel meant that the king had been weighed on the scales and found wanting, and Upharsin meant that his kingdom would be divided and given to the Medes and Persians. The revelation caused a sepulchral silence, a shocking contrast to the orgy of blasphemies that had preceded my interpretation. Despite the gravity of my announcement, Belshazzar fulfilled his promise to clothe me in robes of honor and proclaim me the third ruler of the kingdom. However, these worldly honors were empty in the face of imminent divine judgment. That very night, the prophetic words were fulfilled. Belshazzar was killed, and the Babylonian Empire fell to the Medes and Persians, led by Darius. The writing on the wall was not just an announcement of the end of a blasphemous king, but a demonstration of God's sovereignty over the kingdoms of the earth. He raises and brings down kingdoms and rulers according to his will, and no act of arrogance or defiance will go unanswered. As Babylon fell around us, faith in the God of Israel remained unshaken, a beacon of hope and justice amid the storms of human history. This event not only marked the end of an empire, but also served as a powerful reminder that true greatness lies in reverence and obedience to the God who rules the heavens and the earth. The fall of Babylon was a lesson both for the mighty of the earth and for the humble of heart, demonstrating that true authority and justice belong to God, who sees and judges all actions of men. With the fall of Babylon, a new era began under the rule of the Medes and Persians. Despite the changes in political power, I continued to serve in the court now under the reign of Darius the Mede. My loyalty and integrity stood out in the eyes of the new king, so much so that I was appointed one of the 3 presidents over the kingdom, a position of great responsibility and honor. However, this honor did not come without its price. Envy and resentment boiled in the hearts of some who sought my ruin. Knowing my unwavering devotion to God, they devised a wicked plan to destroy me. They persuaded the king to issue a decree that prohibited any petition to any god or man except the king himself for 30 days. Under penalty of being thrown into the lion's den. Aware of the decree but moved by a faith that transcends human fear, I continued praying and giving thanks to God as I had always done. It did not take long for my accusers to find me in prayer and bring me before the king, demanding the decree's execution. The face of Darius, marked by anguish, revealed his regret for being ensnared by his own law. However, the law of the Medes and Persians could not be revoked, and I was thrown into the lion's den. In the darkness of the den, surrounded by beasts whose roars echoed against the stone walls, my soul found peace in God, whom I had always served. The night advanced, and with it, the expectation of a miracle or the embrace of death. Yet, my faith in God knew no fluctuations. I was in the hands of the Most High, and even in the face of death, my trust in Him remained unshakable. At dawn, Darius's anxious voice broke the silence, calling for me with the hope that the God I served incessantly had delivered me. I responded then, alive by divine mercy, for God had sent His angel to shut the lions' mouths so that they would not harm me, for I was found innocent before him. The king's joy at finding me unharmed was immense, and his immediate order was for me to be lifted from the den. However, divine justice quickly fell upon those who had plotted against me, being thrown into the lion's den themselves, where they met a very different fate from mine. Darius then issued a decree to all the peoples and nations of the vast empire to fear and reverence the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, enduring forever, whose kingdom will not be destroyed and whose dominion will last until the end. He rescues and performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth, and he has saved me from the power of the lions. My story in the lion's den is not just a tale of physical survival, but a manifestation of God's power, a testimony of unshakable faith that resonates through the ages. Amid decrees of kings and roars of lions, God's presence is the true fortress, and His will is the true decree that governs the destiny of men. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a message was revealed to me, Daniel, and it was called a true word, dealing with a great conflict. I mourned for 3 weeks, abstaining from delicacies, meat, wine, and anointments. On the 24th day of the first month, while I was standing by the great river Tigris, I lifted my eyes and saw a man dressed in linen, with belts of fine gold from up his around his waist. His body was like beryl, his face shone like lightning, his eyes were like torches of fire, his arms and feet gleamed like polished bronze, and the sound of his words was like the roar of a multitude. I alone saw this vision, and a great trembling took hold of me, falling into a deep trance with my face to the ground. Then a hand touched me, making me tremble on my knees and hands, and the being said to me, "Daniel, greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak to you, and stand upright, for now I have been sent to you." When he spoke this word to me, I stood up, trembling. By the river Tigris, I was touched by a vision that would reveal future conflicts and God's sovereignty over the course of history. The celestial being who appeared to me explained that from the first day I set my heart to understand and humble myself before God, my words were heard, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia opposed him for 21 days until Michael, one of the chief princes, came to his aid. The revelation that followed spoke of great conflicts that would unfold on the world stage, involving the kings of the north and the south in a web of intrigues and wars that would extend to the time of the end. In the vision, I saw a king of the north who would do as he pleased, exalting and magnifying himself above every god, speaking monstrous things against the God of gods, and prospering until the wrath was completed, for what was determined would be done. It was also revealed that at the time of the end, Michael, the great prince who stands watch over your people, would arise. There would be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time, but at that time your people would be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth would awake, some to everlasting life and some to shame and everlasting contempt. My prominent position in the Medo-Persian kingdom made me a target of envy and conspiracy. Enemies devised a plan to destroy me, persuading King Darius to issue a decree that prohibited any petition to any god or man except the king himself for 30 days. Knowing the decree but unshakable in my faith, I continued my daily prayers to God as was my custom. My accusers quickly reported me to the king, demanding the decree's execution. Darius, realizing the trap he had fallen into, tried in vain to save me, but the law of the Medes and Persians could not be altered. Thus I was thrown into the lion's den. During that night, I found peace and trust in God, believing he would deliver me or that his will would be done, whatever the outcome. At dawn, Darius's anxious voice called for me. I responded that I was alive, for God had sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths. The king, filled with joy, ordered my removal from the den and then threw the conspirators to the same fate, where they met their end. Darius issued a decree proclaiming that all in the kingdom should fear and reverence the God of Daniel, recognizing his sovereignty and power. In the 3rd year of the reign of Cyrus, king of Persia, another vision came to me, Daniel. I mourned for 3 weeks, abstaining from delicacies, meat, wine, and anointments. On the 24th day of the first month, while I was standing by the great river Tigris, I lifted my eyes and saw a man dressed in linen, with belts of fine gold from up his around his waist. His body was like beryl, his face shone like lightning, his eyes were like torches of fire, his arms and feet gleamed like polished bronze, and the sound of his words was like the roar of a multitude. I alone saw this vision, and a great trembling took hold of me, falling into a deep trance with my face to the ground. Then a hand touched me, making me tremble on my knees and hands, and the being said to me, "Daniel, greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak to you, and stand upright, for now I have been sent to you." When he spoke this word to me, I stood up, trembling. The celestial being revealed that there were great conflicts that would unfold on the world stage, involving the kings of the north and the south in a web of intrigues and wars that would extend to the time of the end. He spoke of a king of the north who would do as he pleased, exalting and magnifying himself above every god, speaking monstrous things against the God of gods, and prospering until the wrath was completed. This vision not only disturbed me but also gave me a deeper understanding of the divine plan and the certainty that God's sovereignty prevails over all human empires. From captivity in Babylon to the rise and fall of empires, my life has been a testimony of God's faithfulness and sovereignty. I was called to interpret dreams, resist unjust decrees, and be an example of faith amid trials. The visions I received, the miracles I witnessed, and the trials I faced were manifestations of God's power and mercy. Every challenge overcome, every revelation received, was a constant reminder that God is in control, guiding human history toward his eternal purposes. My story is not just about survival or rising to power, but about the importance of maintaining faith, regardless of circumstances. Through the trials in the lion's den, the interpretations of dreams, and the apocalyptic visions, I learned that true greatness lies in reverence and obedience to the Most High God. My life is a testimony that even in times of adversity, faith in God can transform and guide our steps. And so, I continue my journey, knowing that the end is not really the end, but a transition to a more glorious reality where divine justice will prevail and faith will be rewarded. Religion touches the depths of our souls, reflecting our incessant search for meaning. I would love to hear your reflections and experiences. Share in the comments how your faith shapes your journey. I thank everyone who has been with us. If you felt inspired, don't forget to subscribe and share the video. A big hug to everyone and see you next time.